Hello and welcome to OSW Daily. If this is your first time coming across the channel, I thank you for joining us. And if this is something you like, something you find valuable, please consider subscribing and liking the video and sharing it with your friends and colleagues. Each day we're talking to experts in the field of workplace work, and we're drawing on content that everyone's talking about and trying to get their insights and share their knowledge. For those who haven't been here before, my name is Steve Todd. I am the Global Head of Workplace at NASDAQ. I'm also the founder of Open Source Workplace. I encourage you to go over and check out our website, www.opensourceworkplace.com. And Open Source Workplace is all about sharing knowledge all around work, and hope you find this useful. Today, what are we going to talk about? So today we have a few topics, and it's all about prioritizing the future of work, employee empowerment. What does that actually mean? This is what organizations are saying. Workplace tech, a lot of companies are looking at workplace tech today. What are they saying? What are they doing? What should they be prioritizing? What should they be evaluating? And what risks should they be trying to eliminate in that procurement process? And New York City return. Today we have a very, very, very great guest who's a friend of the show, Phil Kirschner, who lives in New York City, and together we're going to talk about New York City and what that may mean, a return to New York City. So I'm very excited to dig into this. So before I do, let me welcome in our guest, Phil Kirschner. Phil, how you doing, sir? Great to have you with
I'm
us today.
great. Caffeinating, getting better every second.
Good man, good man. And we shifted this time to 8:30 because you've got responsibilities. Get the kids on that bus. Hopefully
I
they got
do.
away to school. Hopefully they got away to
Yes,
school all right.
away and blissfully not in this house, which they're so excited about these days.
That's good. That's good. So they're enjoying being back at school. They're enjoying getting out and see their pals and that.
Yes, although I think first and foremost enjoying time away from mom and dad after a lot of months at home. No, they're having a good time, and fingers crossed and knocking on
Yeah,
everything it stays that way
yeah,
as
yeah.
long as we can hold out.
Good, good, good. And well, look, thank you for joining us again. As I said, you've been on the show many
Yeah.
times. You're someone who I trust the opinion of, and someone who I've leaned on in the past, and I certainly do at this moment in time, given the flexibility and the uncertainty. I guess is probably the better word of what everyone's going through. But yeah, so thank you, and hopefully we get to glean some of your insights and knowledge today. And again, so I encourage people, if you're listening, do type in your questions, and we will put them to Phil, and we will go from there. So I just want to start off with, so Phil, you moderated a work tech last week. How did that go? Because you're usually the voice that people listen to, but here you're moderating. How was that experience?
I mean, it's amazing. I love. I've joked that work tech is like the Super Bowl for the workplace nerds, and I've been going since 2012 in New York. And my first time that I went, I presented a masterclass on the Credit Suisse Workplace Program. So my introduction was like all in. And I've come to just love the chance to see people who were there. So of course it's unfortunate to have it be virtual. I saw a lot of names and people like chatting and just, oh hey, how are
Uh,
you? Um, but no, I haven't moderated anything before. I moderated like I'm usually on a panel as you were.
right.
Um, Moderated, the occupier perspective with Brett Howtop from LinkedIn, Tracy Kelly from Uber, and Terry Raby from Facebook, which is also cool just because they're like when we met the first time, like, oh, you're work tech West Coast people. Like usually you show up in the San Francisco one where friends of mine will go and I'll hear about
Mm-hmm.
it, as opposed to New York, which has more finance and law and other industries. So it's really cool. I could have gone on all day asking them questions because everybody wants to know what they're up to.
Right, right, right. And what was what were the key takeaways that you heard?
That they are completely rethinking what it means to be in a sort of position of authority for design at a company like that, like reaching out not just to help employees, you know, pick the chair, but even giving like design advice for your home environment and using
Mm,
the real estate resources to do that. Um, Rethinking or challenging the assumption of amenities like and food, to hear I think it was Brett say maybe food is like we've hit peak food in the office, and is that going to change coming from the big tech giants is crazy.
that is. I mean, I think one of the big appeals of those companies was the fact that you could get food in their premises, and the gyms, and they basically could entrap you if one is a word, or entice you to a location one earlier in the day instead of later in the day because of all the social activities and they were going, they
Right.
provide, you know.
Right. And now free, choice and autonomy is the new puppies and nap pods, especially with, with Facebook like making huge commitments. Um, the thing I wish we had more time to get into right at the end. I was asking, like, each of those companies has kind of an interesting business perspective on the future of work. So for Uber, it's on mobility. Like, how do we get around? Um, Thinking ahead to autonomous vehicles, uh, the role of, like, urban, suburban connectivity, uh, changes in like public transit policies, right? So that's really fascinating. Facebook obviously is obsessed with how we communicate and build communities online. Um, and LinkedIn is the social network analysis and the analysis of how we work, especially with their acquisition of like Glint, which is an engagement survey platform, which I'd forgotten that they acquired until Brett reminded me. So, to have like Microsoft that had already acquired, who are they, Volumetrics, which does the like social network and communications analysis, to then also have LinkedIn, who in turn acquires the engagement survey platform, is fascinating. And to hear those perspectives on the future of work, but from the people in the real estate position, is like, I could have gone on for hours. Just like, tell me more about that. I want to hear all of the things. So yeah, I loved it, but unfortunately, virtual.
Yeah, yeah. And do you, I mean, so on the virtual, I mean, I actually, obviously, I attended, I participated, I did like the virtual environment in a sense that I could continue doing my day job, and then I could duck in and out as and when I could, which I love that flexibility. At the same time, I don't feel I get immersed into the conference experience. I don't feel the connection with the people. But to your point, I did love seeing the comments down the side, and you sort of feel, you get happy because you see the names, and you get to hear their perspective as well. And people who may not have an opportunity to interact with participants or on events actually get the opportunity to influence and ask questions. So
Yeah,
it's
or someone
interesting.
who may be too shy to raise their hand in a room full of 300 people is okay typing the question in,
Right.
which is actually more like inclusive to
Mm-hmm.
attendees.
Mm-hmm.
Did you try the networking?
I did not. I did not. Did
It,
you?
it was basically speed dating. I didn't until the very end, and I saw the little red light. It was like, ooh, what's this? Um, but it would connect you automatically with someone else who was like in the networking room or whatever it was for, I think, 2 minutes. You could see the clock counting down. It's like, oh, here's a face. Swap LinkedIn details and, hi, who are you? And some people I knew and some had attended my session, but it was very frantic, but like was a nice dose of serendipitous virtual
Mm. Mm-hmm.
encounter as opposed to Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. Um, but the problem with with virtual meetings, much less events, is just a question of facilitation skill, and how engaging are you in preparing what it feels like to be in a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like virtual whiteboarding or voting and engagement, that kind of stuff is all like possible. It's just more difficult and
Mm.
is a labor of love to do the kind of planning that you need to do in advance in order to pull it off. And certainly there's a lot of staff behind the scenes, an event like WorkTech. And I've been saying to them for years, like, the one challenge that they have as a conference is that, like, very quickly the topics we are discussing are eclipsing the format of the event.
What do you mean
Like,
by that?
even like the last physical one I went to, people were making standard conference presentations, like me on stage, you in the audience, in front of a big screen, showing pictures of like super interactive workshops, post-its, and like engagement and solving these big questions, and posing the big question about like the role of automation in the workplace or whatever it is. But we're all like sat there, in chairs together doing nothing.
Mm.
And the challenge is you can, um, conferences that focus on creating that kind of workshop experience are much more intense but have to be smaller. So in order for something like work tech to exist, there's this like, well, it has to be a certain size to generate the sponsorships to get people to come and pay a certain price to pay for the venue, right? It's like, and I'm not a conference planner, and I am endlessly impressed by Phil Ross and like that whole squad for how many events they're able to put on and do it all the time. But I always feel this like, oh gosh, I would love to, I'd love to have a big question posed like that and to be forced to hash it out in real time with all these people. Some maybe I know and some I don't, and like the furniture perspective or the tech perspective and the occupier perspective and the design perspective, and but we can't do that. Like, so you could have, and I'm literally going from this session to run a focus group using like one of the online like voting and engagement platforms, which I've only just started trying with clients, and like it's better than nothing.
Right.
But to be able to like get comments in real time with even like word clouds, or like show who's voting how or ranking how, and tensions in audience opinion about something is better than just sitting there. But it has taken like hours and hours and hours of time to plan for the 90-minute session that I'll have right after that.
Right. It does take so much plan, and also as well, right? You can go to one group in that session and it'd be really interactive. You can go to another one where no one's talking and there's two people just sitting there doing everything, and it is a real challenge, and it's certainly something that I've been thinking about as well. So you're talking to me about this, and I'm thinking OSW, because in essence that's something I want to try and create an opportunity for people to come in and interact with, and that's why Discord was created, to try and generate some of those opportunities. So in time we'll get there, but I do want to move on, and unless I saw your wheels churning there, and I was
just the last thing. I mean, and it has a direct correlation to experience in the workplace with the question of curation or facilitation. Everyone talks about like, oh, it would be so great to have such and such an event, either in person or virtually, to engage people in their community. And my question is always, okay, who runs that? Who actually does it? Because coming from like WeWork and the co-working perspective, the answer is very clear. Community manager, like plans, executes, like winds down that event. In your office, you can't just leave it to like the local admin who has a day job.
Right.
It's the same. It doesn't matter if it's a virtual platform or in person. If you want curated, high-touch experiences, that has to be someone's job, which is very counterintuitive to like a traditional workplace team.
Yeah, it's a great point you made. I was actually watching, I don't know if you've seen, IFMA started publishing their workshops or presentations on YouTube these days. So go check them out. I was watching one last night actually, and that was one of the questions that they had. You know, if you take a facility manager's role traditionally, what it was and what should it be going to, and it's all about the experience and managing that community to be that facilitator, right? And create those opportunities for all that collaboration and understand the ins and outs, because nobody knows people in a building better than the facility managers, because they're the guys that just everyone goes to get things done. So it's an interesting question that was posed.
Yeah, maybe it's like, you know, because in the future, if hey, marketing wants to come in for its like weekly stand-up, the ideal experience for them would be, right, you've got like a 2-person team maybe who is handling that for them. One is sort of leans towards the facility, right? Like, I know the kind of room that you're looking for, whether it's catering and flexibility and the materials, and I'm like, I can make sure that's there. And even better would be like an actual facilitator. Right. If you're coming together for something really high touch, I would love as an employee to know that there's like a team of people available, whether they're contracts or something, to be like, yeah, I'm an expert facilitator. I know a little bit about the thing you're talking about, but my job is not to be the expert. My job is to run you through the paces of some pre-agreed thing you want to do. Right. Especially if it involves like alignment and, you know, breakouts and brainstorming. Just be like, you lean on me. And when you walk out, you as a team manager, whoever, like, will have a better result than asking one member of your team or the head of the team to have to like do that while also participating. Facilitation's a thing. It's like it exists in the world for that purpose, but we don't consume it as employees usually.
Yeah, that's true, and it's also as well who owns that, right? And I think the point you made initially, right? Does it traditionally fall in HR, facility management, the real estate teams, or somebody else within, or outside parties, who are the experts in doing some of these things? So, yeah, interesting. So I am conscious of time, so I would love to move on because in essence it actually falls nicely into this, where this is a study that was published. This is a technology company, or a technology survey that was actually presented. And I've highlighted a few things, and we think about organizations would agree, right? Most employees want choice and flexibility to work in an office. Choice and flexibility. What sort of things do you think that employees want in the office? It's a very broad, open question.
Yeah, I mean, it's not new.
Mm-hmm.
Deloitte's been saying for years that especially, millennials, the younger employees, some staggering percentages, like 92 or 3%, want choice and freedom to start or end their workday in a place like or time of their choosing. So that's first, it's just on time, and then it transcends into like the places that I have access to, the technologies I have access to, and the ability to make that decision or change my decision kind of on the fly. Um, and where the technology comes in, I think, is like tech is the enabler to a lot of that freedom. So if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work seamlessly, employees will notice kind of right away. And then that like trips the little circuit breaker of like I don't even feel like I have basic capability. That's the problem. We are so um, we're like so technically enabled in our personal lives and can switch app to app or choice to choice like so fast that we expect that level of service in the office. So it's not actually an experience trick
Mm-hmm.
to give me like the ability to do something real time anymore. It's just like I expect that. So if you can't even get me to that level, you will never get me above that into true like engagement or fulfillment in my day-to-day work.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, it is. It's so true. And actually, I just pulled the slide off, but then I was just thinking, if we go back to the actual slide, you take that and then you goes to the last comment there, right? Just 41.6% of businesses across the globe have access to workplace analytics. So you take that and you think about the analytics and the opportunity that sort of is in front of us. And, the other side of it is workplace analytics is a big play, but there are so many different new players coming into the space. There are organizations who are out there today evaluating, okay, what does technology in the work environment mean? And say work environment because I'm including at home, in the office, and anywhere in that sort of landscape. And you're obviously out. You're providing consulting for many organizations who are evaluating these very things. So, what guidance can you give me as somebody who runs workplace at Nasdaq and also your clients? What guidance can you give in almost the questions that we need to be asking ourselves, and also then what are some of the pitfalls that we need to avoid in the selection process?
Yeah, I mean, I learned it at JLL watching colleagues who were on the smart building side. So not like the workplace experience, more the like no, workplace experience and employee experience apps, which usually, and this is a very general statement, will be connecting to like a IWMS in some way, the,
Mm-hmm.
the the hub system for the workplace. Then there's the smart building side and facilities experience, which usually in some way, shape, or form is connecting to your BMS, right? The building management
Right.
system. And there's a lot of glitz and like shiny toys on the building management side. And clients would come and say, "Oh, I want all of that. I want like touchless entry. I want my lights to blink 5 minutes before my meeting's up. I want to know where all the bodies in the building are for health and safety reasons. I want more energy efficiency." And be like, "I want this, 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 this." Like a vendor showed me this. I heard about that. And my colleagues were really good at like slowing down the conversation and saying, "What I think you need is like a roadmap and a set of guiding principles agreed by all the related parties on like what you want to accomplish, what you want it to feel like, and your like non-negotiables or deal breakers." And it's usually someone in compliance or information security, which I say lovingly is someone who used to do information security, who's like, there are things that I'm just going to say no to forever. And if that's the case, if you can align on that and get everybody to understand like just what isn't possible, that's going to really clarify your like what is possible for you and the vision and the kinds of applications you can look for and the requirements you can ask individual vendors, like, can you meet this? Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, it does.
And I don't see enough of that, like realizing that there needs to be a vision and like to go higher level before getting in the weeds, because every one of those disciplines shows up with the 100-page guide of
Right.
like, this is my job, is to ensure compliance with this. I'm designing construction. I'm, again, information security. I'm legal and compliance. Like, boom, this is my job. Instead of like put away the guidebook, let's align and understand, like especially for compliance-oriented functions, be like, I, company, on behalf of employees, am going to ask you to do something going forward, which, for which you will have to suppress your gag reflex a little bit. Like, it's gonna be more open, more interconnected, raise more questions about employee privacy,
Right.
either like outright legally or just the way it feels to the employee. Like, we got to get all that out on the table. Because if you want to, like, the tools are going to come fast and furious in our retail lives. I may have one app today that like lets me chat with my friends, Discord, right? I may like love Discord, but that is a very crowded space too. And if someone else is like, hey, have you tried this one? It has that
Right.
one thing that like Discord doesn't have. I'm like, oh, cool. See you on there in 5 minutes.
Right.
The switching cost is like nothing.
Right.
So employees want that. And I think, it isn't a bad thing to say, oh yeah, we're going to use this experience, that like this application for booking now, and maybe later become something else. Especially the younger they are, employees are really okay. I like, at least at WeWork, like we change stuff all the time. I was like, oh, cool, this is better, upgrade, but the switching cost is very little. And they had already hashed out the infrastructure that was required to like onboard new applications.
Mm-hmm.
Single sign-on being a big one.
Right.
We work as a like all Google Suite and an Okta shop for
Mm-hmm.
single sign-on. So like, for them to say, oh yeah, we have a new application, like there's a new like tile in your login, you can just use it. I don't have to manage any new accounts, right? It's very seamless for me. And I go, oh, this is great. Same thing works on my phone. And if a better mousetrap comes along, it's great. But yeah, so it's that you have to arm yourself for the ability to evaluate the entire landscape, eliminate the things that you're just not going to do. Because if you start getting demos of employee experience apps 6 weeks before you even like tap your security partner on the phone, they're going to go bananas and ruin
Right.
the whole plan. Like
No,
6
no,
weeks later.
I 100% agree with you. What I would say, though, I do disagree with the fact that the switching cost is in the workplace it can never be zero, right? Because there's the investment in time, selection, there's the cost to buy the service, there's contracts and so on and so forth. So it isn't quite cut and dry like that. With personal life, absolutely, right? Because who pays for these things, and the switching cost is almost zero. It's the time to download and sign yourself up, right? Which many applications do this automatically for you when you just add to them. So with those things in mind, what sort of things you mean? Because here's my concern is, when I look at this, I go, okay, so what questions do I need to answer today, right? What questions can these platforms deliver for me today that helps me today? Because I know that everyone's going to iterate, and I know that whatever we need tomorrow, hoping that these technologies will get there, but it's really hard to navigate that through. And it's really trying to identify, okay, what are the priorities that you as an organization, you as a facility manager, need to deliver for your organization, that then becomes your benchmark, and you go through that criteria top to bottom.
I think it's a question of making sure you control the narrative about your employees' journey and like persona. And these are the things that are important to our people during the day, with real examples of your systems and tools. Like, my people need to wake up, like, get online and get access to this thing, and let that drive. Make sure that like you're in the driver's seat and not just being told that all employees everywhere need XYZ feature. Not allow yourself to be sold on the feature, but to be hunting like confidently for specific solutions that improve barriers that your employee persona is like already experience or that you expect that
Right.
they're going to experience because you're changing the way that they engage with your workplace.
Right.
And just like on your point of switching costs, you're right. Like it's not zero, but if what we're talking about is like the workplace of the future has to be more responsive to change. And we're already saying like real estate, the space itself used to be the fixed asset that didn't change very often, but now there's an option, which is let's say co-working or something. Like you can make spatial decisions that don't bind you forever. So
Mm-hmm.
it still costs money and it can be expensive in the moment, but like it can change faster than you used to think it could.
Right.
Software's the same thing, right? Like you have to at least get in the mindset that employees will expect that it can change faster than it used to, and work from that perspective backwards to where my like non-negotiables and controls that I have to put in place, as opposed to assuming it's a one and done decision. Um, these are, as Amazon would call it, these are two-way doors. Like you can undo it. It's not like we've made this decision forever. And as long as employees can see that that change is made smartly and feedback is taken and it's adjusted quickly, they can kind of go on the ride with you. They just can't see you having the attitude that like, no, we'll never do it, or once it's done, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a total inconsistency with like their experience in the real world, especially if you're like 22.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. It is true. And I know time is getting away from us, and
Yeah.
I just want to have one final question because I think it's kind of important to sort of touch on. Workplace apps adoption pre pandemic was quite low, 18% or something like that. Do you think with the sentiment and what employees want with that flexibility, do you think workplace apps will have greater adoption post pandemic?
Yes, I think so. On the basis of like my experience at Credit Suisse when we did the mobility program there, it was a stark difference in the adoption of let's just call it end user computing applications and mobility and communication applications um, by employees that were in the mobility environment and those who weren't. They figured
Mm.
out really fast. They're like, oh, my day would be much easier if I knew how to like port my phone from place to place. And of course, like the app had been there, the instructions had been there, but all of a sudden they're like, oh, this makes my day better. I am going to read it and pay attention.
Mm.
So I think if people realize like, yeah, these tools are out there, I'm going to use it. And the challenge then becomes who is like your customer success for your enterprise applications, because that often doesn't exist, or at least I don't see it consistently. Who is telling your leadership like these are the 10 tools that we have that make people the most productive during their day, and like you, Mary, your department adoption is 20%, and you, Bob, 80%. Like Bob, what are your people doing that Mary's people aren't
Right.
doing, and like can you help each other? Because my job is to enable the employee and be looking at that as opposed to just putting it out there and then like that's it.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. Actually, I like that, and it's often not done right. It's often okay. This adoption is X, and we don't really dig into the details. Like
Yeah,
analytics.
commercially it is. When you buy
Yeah,
software,
yeah,
someone
of
on that
course.
software side is like their job is to make sure that you are using every module and every feature and everything because that makes you stickier as a customer.
Right, right.
They have to do the same thing on the employee side.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So Phil, look, I want to thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate your insights and I enjoyed the conversation. And folks, check out the links
always.
below where you can reach out to Phil. He's easily to find on LinkedIn, Twitter, and all these good social media places, and also the Discord channel. So Phil, thank you. Take care. Have a